For 2 nights, we have been looking for answers to major questions concerning the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Sunday night, we asked, did Lee Harvey Oswald take a rifle to the book depository building? Our answer was yes. Where was Oswald on the day President Kennedy was shot? In the building on the 6th floor. Was Oswald's rifle fired from the building? Yes. How many shots were fired? Most likely 3. How fast could Oswald's rifle be fired? Fast enough. What was the time span of the shots? At least as large as the Warren Commission reported. Most likely the assassin had more time, not less. And so we concluded Sunday night that Lee Harvey Oswald fired 3 shots at the motorcade. And then last night we began to look into the question of conspiracy. Were there others also firing at the president? We interviewed eyewitnesses. They told conflicting stories. We tested in our own investigation the critical single bullet theory and found one bullet might well have wounded both men. Captain James Humes, who conducted the autopsy on the president, broke a 3.5-year silence to report that he has re-examined the x-rays and photographs and stands firm that the shots came from behind. We heard Governor Connolly and heard that his recollections conform with our own reconstruction of the assassination. And we concluded that there was no second gunman. Tonight, we look further into the question of conspiracy. Was Oswald acting alone, or was he the agent of others? Was the assassination the sole work of a twisted, discontented man seeking a place in history, or were there dark forces behind Oswald? Continuing to seek an answer to the question of whether Lee Harvey Oswald was involved in a conspiracy leads us to a second murder. Oswald was taken into custody in a movie theater at 1:50 p.m., 80 minutes after President Kennedy was shot. But he was first charged not with the murder of the president, but with the murder of Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit. Our next question, could Oswald have made his way to the scene of Officer Tippit's murder?
To solve the Tippit killing, it is vital to reconstruct Lee Harvey Oswald's actions from the moment of the assassination to the moment of Tippit's death. Yet for 3.5 years, all news media have been barred from the Texas School Book Depository where the first critical few moments of Oswald's flight occurred. Depository officials have agreed to lift the ban for these special broadcasts, and so, for the first time, we have been able to follow the path of Oswald's movements from his sniper's nest on the 6th floor.
Taking his rifle with him, Oswald went between the stacks of book cartons to the opposite corner of the 6th floor. He tucked the rifle down between stacks, and at this point probably discovered that the elevator could not be brought up, that Charles Gibbons, eager to see the parade, had forgotten to close the gate. So Oswald turned to the stairs and went down 4 flights to the 2nd floor and to the lunchroom there, where he was next seen at about 12:31 p.m., barely a minute and a half after his 3rd shot. In front of a Coke machine, a policeman at gunpoint actually stopped Oswald. But Depository Superintendent Roy Truly told the officer Oswald was an employee, and Oswald was released. Free to go, Oswald apparently crossed the 2nd floor through this office, went down the front stairs, perhaps 3 minutes after the assassination, and continued out through the glass front door, well before police sealed off the depository building.
Here is how the Warren Commission reconstructed Oswald's movements after he left the depository. He walked 7 blocks down Elm Street, then took a bus on Murphy headed for Oak Cliff. But the bus quickly became tangled in the traffic jam caused by the assassination itself, and Oswald got off, walked 2 blocks to Lamar, then took a cab several blocks past his rooming house on Beckley. The commission believes he then walked back to his apartment, picked up a revolver and a lightweight jacket, and set off on foot down Beckley.
Attention all squads. Attention all squads. The suspect in the shooting at Elm in Houston is reported to be an unknown white male, approximately 30, slender build.
During this period, the Dallas Police radio broadcast a description of a suspect, and critics have made much of the speed with which it was sent out just 15 minutes after the shots were fired. It asked officers to be on the lookout for a white man, slender, weighing about 165, standing about 5 feet 10 inches, in his early 30s. Well, how did police get the description on the air in 15 minutes? Critics have questioned both the source of the description and the speed with which it was sent out. The Warren Commission admitted the source could only be guessed at. Its own guess was that it came from Howard L. Brennan, an eyewitness. The critics doubt Brennan had a good enough view of Oswald in the window to arrive at a good description. They also doubt he passed the information on to a Secret Service man within 10 minutes, as he later claimed. At 1:15 p.m., 45 minutes after the assassination, the commission report says, Officer Tippit stopped Oswald. Whether because of the description or not will never be known, and was shot down. Now, did Oswald have time to get to 10th and Patton in time for the fatal encounter with Tippit?
A CBS newsman following the Warren Commission blueprint found that 45 minutes was ample time.
The answer is yes. He could have made his way there.
Holiday weekenders, don't forget to remember.
For extra fun, take more than one. Take an extra carton of Coke. Life is much more fun when you're refreshed. And Coke refreshes you best. Fun goes better with. Food goes better with. Extra cartons of Coca-Cola. Coke has the taste that you never get tired of. Coke after Coke after Coca-Cola. So for extra fun, take more than one. Take an extra carton of Coke, Coca-Cola.
Swim, fly, drive to your nearest store and look for displays of Coca-Cola. Now.
There's something about an Aqua Velva man. You're my kind of guy. I want you so. Baby, everything about you is go, go, go. With Aqua Velva lotion, our romance began because there's something about an Aqua Velva man.
Get Aqua Velva Aftershave Lotion. Regular, menthol, and now luxurious frost line.
Is it a super jet? Is it a rocket? It's so fast, so smooth. What is it?
It's Williams Electric Shave in action. The pre-shave lotion that puts wings on your electric razor. It sets up your beard for a closer shave. Lubricates your skin for a jet smooth shave. You'll skim off the toughest beard with jet speed. Put wings on your electric razor with Williams Electric Shave. Look for the big L, first letter in.
A CBS News inquiry. The Warren Report continues. Here again is Walter Cronkite.
Why was Officer Tippit in Oak Cliff off his normal beat? Those who believe there was a conspiracy involving the Dallas police force have maintained that the meeting between Oswald and Tippit was not an accident, that Tippit may have been looking for Oswald or vice versa. They say Tippit should not have been where he was and should not have been alone in the squad car. Eddie Barker talked to police radio dispatcher Murray Jackson.
Officer Jackson, a lot of critics of the Warren Report have made quite a thing out of the fact that Officer Tippit was not in his district when he was killed. Could you tell us how he happened to be out of his district?
Yes, Eddie, I have heard this several times since the incident occurred, and he was where he was because I had assigned him to be where he was in the central Oak Cliff area. There was the shooting involving the president, and we immediately dispatched every available unit to the triple underpass where the shot was reported to have come from. I realized that, as you said, that we were draining the Oak Cliff area of available police officers, so if there was an emergency such as an armed robbery or a major accident to come up, we wouldn't have anybody there that would be in any close proximity to answer the call. And since J.D. was the outermost unit, actually I had two units, 87, which was Officer Nelson, and 78, which was Officer Tippit.
Well, now, as you got down toward the time when Officer Tippit met his death, what transpired right prior to that? Were you aware of where he was all the time?
No, I asked him once again what his location was sometime after, and to determine that he was in the Oak Cliff area. He said he was at Lancaster and 8th, which is on the east side of Oak Cliff, but in the main business district. And I did ask once again a few minutes later I called him to ask him his location so I could keep track of him where he was in my mind, but he didn't answer.
When did you realize that he was dead?
We had received a call from a citizen. They called us in on the telephone, and the call sheet came to me, and it was a disturbance in the street in the 400 block of East 10th. And I had called, I said 78, and he didn't answer. And almost immediately to this, a citizen came in on police radio and said, send me some help, there's been an officer shot out here. And knowing that J.D. was the only one that should have been in Oak Cliff, my reaction was to call 78. And, of course, J.D. didn't answer. So we asked the citizen to look at the number on the side of the car. This was the equipment number that determined which patrol car was to be on each assigned district. And they said that it was number 10. And since I had worked with J.D. in this particular car, well, I determined to myself that with him not answering and the equipment number, that this was Officer Tippett.
The answer to this question is that he had been sent to Oak Cliff by the police dispatcher. Opponents of the Warren report maintain that Officer Tippett was shot not by Oswald, but by others. Who shot Officer Tippett? Eddie Barker talked to two witnesses who were on the scene of the Tippett murder. First, Domingo Benavides, who was at the wheel of a truck across the street from the scene.
As I was driving down the street, I seen this police car was sitting here, and the officer was getting out of the car, and apparently had been talking to the man that was standing by the car. The policeman got out of the car, and as he walked past the windshield of the car where they'd kind of lined up over the hood of the car, well, this other man shot him. And, of course, he was reaching for his gun. And so I was standing there, sitting there in the truck, and not in no big hurry to get out. Of course, I was sitting there watching everything. This man turned from the car then and took a couple steps. Then, as he turned to walk away, well, he was unloading his gun, and he took the shells, held them in his hand, and as he took off, he threw them in the bushes, more or less like nothing really trying to get rid of them. I guess he didn't figure he was caught anyway, so he just threw them in the bushes. But as he started to turn and walk away, well, he stopped and looked back at me, and I didn't know if he figured, well, I'll just let this poor guy go, or he has nothing to do with it, or, I'm not out to kill everybody, just, whoever gets in my way, I guess. I gave him enough time to get around the house, thinking he might have went in the house. I sat there for maybe a second or two, and then jumped out of the truck and run over. As I walked by, I didn't even slow down. I see the officer's dead, so I just walked in, got in the car, and I figured that would be the fastest way. In fact, I don't even know why I called him on the radio. I just figured now that it was the fastest way to get a police officer out.
Hello, police operator. Go ahead. Go ahead. It says news. Hello, we've had a shooting out here. Where is it at? It says the news and police radio. What location? Between Marsalis and Buckley. It's a police officer. Somebody shot him. What's it? 410th Street. It's in a police car. Number 10. Hello, police operator. Did you get that? Police officer, 510 East Jefferson. Thank you. 35. The Citizen News and Police Radio will remain off the radio now.
Well, now, did several other people come up later?
Immediately afterwards. I mean, it was just... after people, I guess, a block away, like Mr. Calloway, he come up and he says, let's go get him or something. And then this cab pulled up right afterwards. And so Calloway went over and took the officer's gun out of his hand.
But Calloway did go after him, didn't he?
Yeah, Calloway took off to go try to catch him.
Well, Eddie, I was standing on the front porch of the used car lot that I worked on here. And all of a sudden I heard some shooting. In fact, I heard 5 shots coming from the direction behind the lot over on 10th Street there. Well, I come running off the side of the porch and out to the sidewalk here, and I looked up the street and I saw this man run through this hedge up here on the corner. And I saw right away that he had a gun in his hand. And then he continued across the street coming in this direction. Well, when he got right across from me over here, just about 30 yards or less, why, I called to him and just asked him hey, man, what the hell's going on? Because that's just exactly what I wondered. I didn't know who he was at the time, of course. And he looked my direction and paused, almost stopped, and said something to me, but I couldn't make out what he said. But he had this pistol in his hand, carried in what we used to in the Marine Corps call a raised pistol position, and then he slowed down and started walking. Then I ran to the corner, 10th and Patton, and when I got there, I saw this squad car parked near the curb, and then I walked around in front of the squad car, and this policeman was lying in front of the squad car.
Tom, what about those expended shells?
Well, they were looking all over the place for evidence, I guess, and taking fingerprints and what have you. So I guess they was going to walk off and leave them. You know, not knowing they was there and seeing I knew where they was at, I walked over and picked up a stick and picked them up and put them in a Winston package. I think I picked up 2 and put them in a Winston package, and then as I was walking back, I picked the other one up by hand, I believe. And I picked them up with a stick, you know, keep from leaving fingerprints on them, because I figured they might need them.
The cartridges that Benavides picked up were positively identified as being fired in Oswald's revolver, but only one of the 4 lead bullets removed from Officer Tippett's body could be positively identified with that revolver by Illinois ballistics identification expert Joseph Nickel.
In the examination of the projectiles, the tests and the evidence projectiles were not easily matched because of a certain mechanical problem with the weapon. The barrel was oversized for the size of the ammunition used, since this was a weapon originally intended for British use and was re-imported into America. This means that the bullet, instead of touching on all surfaces going down the barrel, actually wobbles a little bit as it goes through the barrel. As a consequence, it is difficult to have it strike the same places every time as it goes through the barrel. So that the match on the projectiles was extremely difficult. I did find, however, that on the driving edge of the lands, there were certain groups of lines which I could match on one bullet. I wasn't able to identify the others, although there was nothing to exclude them insofar as the class characteristics. All of them could have been fired in that particular weapon.
One of the bullets that killed Officer Tippett was fired in Oswald's revolver. The other 3 could have been, according to the ballistics identification expert. Ted Calloway went to the police station that night and made a positive identification of Oswald in a lineup. But Mr. Benavides did not do so. Eddie Barker asked him if he were sure Oswald did the shooting.
Is there any doubt in your mind that Oswald was the man you had seen shoot Tippett?
No, sir, there was no doubt at all, period. I could even tell you how he combed his hair and the clothes he wore and what have you to the detail. And if he had a scar on his face, I could probably tell you about it. But you don't get things like that.
The answer to this question, despite the problem of the ballistic evidence, is that Lee Harvey Oswald shot J.D. Tippett. What of the theory that Tippett actually knew Oswald? It's not easy to prove that someone did not know someone else. But every attempt to pin down the rumor that the 2 men knew each other has ended in failure. There is nothing in the circumstances surrounding Tippett's death to suggest any kind of conspiracy. Mrs. Tippett says flatly that neither she nor her husband knew Oswald. Officer Jackson was among Tippett's closest friends and had been for years. Eddie Barker put the question to him.
Do you have any reason to believe that Officer Tippett knew Lee Harvey Oswald?
I don't believe there is a possible connection at all. No, I don't think that he knew Oswald.
Did you know Oswald?
No, I didn't either.
35 minutes after Officer Tippett's murder, Oswald was captured in the Texas Theater. Johnny Brewer, a shoe clerk, had spotted him in a doorway and watched while he slipped into the theater. Brewer spoke to the cashier. She called police. The next 48 hours were filled with confusion. An army of newsmen jammed into the Dallas police building. Oswald was paraded through the halls to and from questioning sessions. Police Chief Jesse Curry and District Attorney Henry Wade said repeatedly they expected to prove Oswald guilty, although he maintained to the last he was not. No record was made of his interrogation. Sunday, November 24th.
the mob scene continues as Oswald is brought into the basement of the police building for transfer to the jail. And then, in full sight of millions of television viewers, a man named Jack Ruby surges through the crowd and shoots Lee Oswald dead.
Why? A fateful meeting of deranged minds or some twisted conspiracy? Why did Ruby kill Oswald?
This is the world of Jack Ruby, a world of neon and female flesh, of bumps and grinds and watered drinks. Ruby operated a pair of sleazy nightclubs, the Carousel and the Vegas. In the free and easy atmosphere that seemed to characterize the Boom City, Ruby was also a hanger-on of the police, entertaining off-duty officers in his strip joints, often carrying sandwiches over to the police building for his on-duty friends. These are some of the people of Jack Ruby's world. His roommate, a competing nightclub owner, and two of Jack Ruby's girls.
Mr. Weinstein, why do you think Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald?
I think it was on the spur of the moment. That he really wanted to make himself look like a big man, and he thought that would make him above everybody else. That the people would come up and thank him for it. The people would come around and want to meet him and want to know him. This is the man that shot the president.
Why do you think Jack shot Oswald?
Oh, I think that it was mostly an impulsive act. And Jack also, I believe, thought that so many people at the time was saying they ought to kill him and this and that, that he, in my personal opinion, Jack thought this would just bring him a sensational amount of business, and he would just really be a hero.
Diana, why do you think Jack shot Oswald?
I think that he came down there just to see what was going on. And when he saw that sneer on Oswald's face, that's all it would take to snap Jack. The way Oswald's mouth was curled up, you could even see it in the picture. I think when he saw that look was when he decided to shoot him, not when he was coming down. And I think he did it because he thought that it was a service to his country and in his way of thinking. That was the way he thought.
I don't believe that Jack Ruby ever took any secrets to his grave. I've been around him too long, and I've lived with him too long. And I'm certain he told the truth right up until his death. And I'll never be convinced otherwise. There was nothing he ever hid. The public knew everything he ever said or heard.
Jack Ruby was convicted of the murder of Oswald, but the conviction was reversed by an appeals court which held that an alleged confession should not have been admitted. Ruby died 6 months ago of cancer, maintaining to the last that he was no conspirator, that he had killed Oswald out of anger and a desire to shield Jacqueline Kennedy from the ordeal of a trial at which she would have had to appear as a witness. Dallas police had alerted the press that Oswald would be moved to the county jail shortly after 10 a.m. on November 24th. That departure was delayed. Yet a receipt shows that Ruby was sending a money order to one of his strippers from a Western Union office across from the courthouse at 11:17 a.m., when anyone premeditating murder in the courthouse basement would already have stationed himself there. In fact, it was probably the activity around the courthouse entrance which caught Jack Ruby's eye as he left the Western Union office. Ruby was carrying a pistol because he was carrying money. He was accustomed to wander in and out of the police building at will. The Oswald murder today still appears to have been not a conspiracy, but an impulse, meaningless violence born of meaningless violence.
The Longhorns come to Marlboro country. Longhorns, new extra long Marlboro 100s. Big gold pack. Big flavor, too, in the new longer Marlboro. New extra long Marlboro 100s with Marlboro flavor all the way. The Longhorns come to Marlboro country. New extra-long Marlboro 100s.
Night.
No sleep for me. I'm all tensed up.
Take a sleeping tablet.
Aren't they all alike?
No, this one's different. Nitol.
Safe?
Of course, just follow directions.
So what's different?
Here. Read this advertisement in Reader's Digest.
Nitol releases its sleep-inducing ingredient more than twice as fast as any other leading brand.
Helps you get to sleep faster, wake up raring to go. Good night.
Try Nitol, safe, non-habit forming.
If you want really clean dentures, listen.
Now people don't even know I wear dentures.
They do look natural.
I brush daily with denture cream to keep them that way.
Ever soak them?
Yes, but with a soak, you add water and just soak. Give me denture cream and a brush.
People like Denture Cream's concentrated cleaning power. See? When Denture Cream goes to work on this stained denture material, stains are brushed away quickly and safely. Denture Cream keeps dentures clean, natural looking.
A CBS News inquiry. The Warren Report continues. Here again is Walter Cronkite.
The most recent, most spectacular development in the Oswald case involves the CIA. It involves, too, the spectacular district attorney of New Orleans.
To come out.
Where are those individuals? Are they in the White House? Are they in the CIA? Are they in the FBI? Where are they?
I think the probability is that you'll find them in the Justice Department, the Central Intelligence Agency.
You're asking a good many questions, but you haven't got the answers to those questions. You have a theory as to why, indeed, the president might have been assassinated by a group of dissidents.
No, your statement is incorrect. We have more than a theory. We have conversations about the assassination of the President of the United States, and it does not include only the conversation brought out at the preliminary hearing. We have money passed with regard to the assassination of the President of the United States. We have individuals involved in the planning, and we can make the case completely. I can't make any more comments about the case except to say anybody that thinks it's just a theory is going to be awfully surprised when it comes to trial.
Garrison says Clay Shaw used the alias Clay Bertrand, or Clem Bertrand. At Shaw's preliminary hearing, Perry Russo testified that Shaw used the name Clem Bertrand the night of the alleged meeting to plot the assassination. It was obviously a crucial point in Garrison's presentation at that hearing. But a week ago, NBC said it has discovered that Clay Bertrand is not Clay Shaw. NBC said the man who uses that alias is a New Orleans homosexual whose real name, not disclosed in the broadcast, has been turned over to the Justice Department.
Garrison's problems multiplied yesterday. His chief aide, William Gurvich, who conferred recently with Senator Robert Kennedy, abruptly resigned. Gurvich was questioned by Bill Reed, news director of WWL-TV in New Orleans, and CBS News reporter Edward Rabel.
Mr. Gurvich, why did you resign as Mr. Garrison's chief aide in this investigation?
I was very dissatisfied with the way the investigation was being conducted, and I saw no reason for the investigation and decided that if the job of an investigator is to find the truth, then I was to find it. I found it, and this led to my resignation.
Well, what then is the truth?
The truth as I see it is that Mr. Shaw should never have been arrested.
Why did you decide to see Senator Robert Kennedy?
Ed, I went to Senator Kennedy because he was a brother of the late President Kennedy, to tell him we could shed no light on the death of his brother and not to be hoping for such. After I told him that, he appeared to be rather disgusted to think that someone was exploiting his brother's death, and by bringing it up over and over again and doing what has been done in this investigation.
There's been talk of allegations of wrongdoing, of coercion, of possible bribery on the part of investigators or certain investigators for the district attorney. To your knowledge, are these allegations true?
Unquestionably, things have happened
in the district attorney's office that definitely warrants an investigation by the parish grand jury as well as a federal grand jury.
Would you say these methods were illegal?
I would say very illegal and unethical.
Can you give us any specifics?
I would rather say that for the grand jury's, Bill, if I may.
Is this on the part of just one or two investigators, or does it involve the whole staff, or perhaps Mr. Garrison?
It involves more than two people.
More than two people. Do you believe Mr. Garrison had knowledge of these activities?
Yeah, of course he did. He ordered it.
He ordered it?
He ordered it. Yes, sir.
Why did he feel it was necessary to order such activities?
That I cannot explain. I am not a psychiatrist.
Mr. Garrison said the CIA has attempted to block his investigation for some time.
His purpose for bringing the CIA in, Bill, is this. As he put it, they can't afford to answer. He can say what he damn well pleases about that agency, and they'll never reply.
The engineers at Whirlpool have a theory about air conditioners. If they'll work in Panama, they'll work in Pennsylvania. So we set up a testing station in Panama. Not in any special laboratory, though. We just loaned air conditioners to some of the local natives. Besides being the only humane thing to do, it got us the most dedicated air conditioner testers in the world. They usually run those machines 24 hours a day. And if that abuse doesn't kill the compressor, and if Panama's humidity doesn't corrode the coils, we've definitely got a good machine. So everybody's happy. We know just how much of a beating Whirlpool air conditioners can take. And as for the natives, they aren't restless anymore.
Trucks at work really are attention getters, especially to little boys. But it's a fact that whatever we do, wherever we go, trucks are important to all of us. Trucks play a major role in building and maintaining the finest highways in the world. Trucks that are made tough and light with aluminum. And to carry the fuel that keeps our cars running, big gleaming tank trucks roll day and night. And then there are the trucks that carry the food we eat, the clothes we wear. Trucks that move millions of pounds of goods, millions of miles every day. Yes, practically everything we need, as well as those little things we all enjoy, travel by truck. Reynolds is proud to be a member of the American trucking industry.
A CBS News inquiry, the Warren Report, continues. Here again is Walter Cronkite.
Mr. Garrison is the only critic who has been in a position to act on his beliefs. He has brought Clay Shaw before the courts of Louisiana. And until that case is tried, we cannot, with propriety, go deep into the details of the evidence or reach any final conclusions concerning the case or the allegations concerning Clay Shaw. Mr. Garrison's public statements, however, and there's been no shortage of them, are fair targets. They have consistently promised startling proof. But until the trial, Mr. Garrison's promises remain just that and cannot be tested. But the whole atmosphere of his investigation and the charges that have been made by news organizations concerning it are not such as to inspire confidence. It may be that Garrison will finally show that there was a lunatic fringe and dark and devious conspiracy. But so far, he has shown us nothing to link the events he alleges to have taken place in New Orleans and the events we know to have taken place in Dallas. Those events, the events surrounding the assassination itself, we have now examined to the best of our ability. On Sunday night, we considered whether Lee Harvey Oswald had shot the president. We concluded that he had. Last night, we asked if there was more than one assassin. We concluded there was not, and that Oswald was a sole assassin. Tonight, we've asked if there was a conspiracy involving perhaps Officer Tippit, Jack Ruby, or others. The answer here cannot be as firm as our other answers, partly because of the difficulty cited in the Warren Report of proving something did not happen. but partly, too, because there remains a question as to just what Jim Garrison will produce in that New Orleans courtroom. But on the basis of the evidence now in hand, at least, we still can find no convincing indication of such a conspiracy. If we put those three conclusions together, they seem to CBS News to tell just one story. Lee Harvey Oswald, alone and for reasons all his own, shot and killed President Kennedy. It is too much to expect that the critics of the Warren Report will be satisfied with the conclusions CBS News has reached, any more than they were satisfied with the conclusions the Commission reached. Mark Lane, for example, the most vocal of all the critics, has a theory of his own.
If you would give us briefly, Mr. Lane, your version of what happened there that day.
Well, I think, if I can use this model, I think the evidence indicates, of course, the car came down Main, up here, and down Elm Street, and was approximately here when the first shot was fired. The first shot struck the president in the back of the right shoulder, according to the FBI report, and indicates, therefore, that it came from someplace in the rear, which would include the possibility of it coming from the book depository building. The second bullet struck the president in the throat from the front, came from behind this wooden fence high up on a grassy knoll. Two more bullets were fired. One struck the Main Street curb and caused some concrete or lead to scatter up and strike a spectator named James Tague in the face. Another bullet fired from the rear struck Governor Connolly in the back. As the limousine moved up to approximately this point, another bullet was fired from the right front, struck the president in the head, drove his body to the left and to the rear, and drove a portion of his skull backward to the left and to the rear. 5 bullets fired from at least 2 different directions, the result of a conspiracy.
An even more elaborate account is given by William Turner, a former FBI agent who has become a warm supporter of District Attorney Garrison.
Now, what happened there was that the Kennedy motorcade coming down there, the Kennedy limousine, there were shots from the rear, from either the Dallas School Book Depository building or the Dal Mart or the courthouse. And there were shots from the grassy knoll. This is triangulation. There's no escape from it if it's properly executed. I think that the massive head wound where the president's head was literally blown apart came from a quartering angle on the grassy knoll. The bullet was a low-velocity dum-dum mercury fulminate howl nose, which are outlawed by the Hague Convention, but which are used by paramilitary groups. And that the whole reaction is very consistent to this kind of weapon, that he is struck and his head doesn't go directly back this way, but it goes back and over this way, which would be consistent with the shot from that direction in Newton's law of motion. Now, I feel also that the escape was very simple. Number one, using a revolver or a pistol with the shells do not eject. They don't even have to bother to pick up their discharged shells. Number two, they can slip the gun under their coat, and when everybody comes surging up there, they can just say, "Went that way." Very simple. In fact, it's so simple that it's probably happened that way.
In the light of what we have exposed over the past 3 evenings, it's difficult to take such versions seriously. But unquestionably, there are those who will do so, and it is their privilege. Our own task is not yet over. We must still ask whether the Warren Commission did all that was asked of it, whether other arms of the government acted as they should have acted, whether another commission might cast new light upon the assassination. We must ask also whether there are fundamental and profound human reasons for the aura of disbelief that surrounds the Warren Report. We will deal with all those matters tomorrow night in the last portion of this inquiry. But this is a natural moment to pause and to sum up what we think we have learned. Dan, you were in Dealey Plaza on the day of the assassination. You've been back there several times since, and when we did the first Warren Report, and now in recent days to prepare this report. And you've been up in that window. We've looked out that window with you, but subjectively, what is the Oswald eye view of the assassination site?
It was an easy shot, a much easier shot than even it looks in our pictures. The range was such, the angle was such, that it did not take an expert shot, one man, to do what the Warren Commission says was done from there.
Eddie, as news director of our esteemed affiliate KRLD-TV in Dallas, you've been right in the vortex of this thing since the moment of the assassination. What about the people of Dallas themselves? Do they agree with the Warren Commission report?
Walter, I think that on a cross-section basis, the percentage that had some doubt about it would be about what it would be across the country. Certainly there are people who have some doubts about it, but most of the doubters, I think, are those who come to Dallas and who come into our newsroom, as a matter of fact. They bring a lot of questions, but so far none of them have brought any answers.
That's the problem we all have, isn't it? And let me ask each of you in turn this question. Are you contented with the basic finding of the Warren Commission?
I'm contented with the basic finding of the Warren Commission that the evidence is overwhelming that Oswald fired at the president and that Oswald probably killed President Kennedy alone. I am not content with the findings on Oswald's possible connections with government agencies, particularly with the CIA. I'm not totally convinced that at some earlier time, unconnected with the assassination, that Oswald may have had more connections than we've been told about or that have been shown. I'm not totally convinced about the single bullet theory, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary to the final conclusion of the Warren Commission report. I would have liked more questioning, a more thorough going into Marina Oswald's background. But as to the basic conclusion, I agree.
Eddie?
I agree with it, Walter. It's too bad, of course, that Oswald didn't have his day in court, but I felt the night of November 22nd that he was the one who had shot the president, and nothing has come to light since then to change my opinion a bit.
It is difficult to be totally content. Yet experience teaches all of us that any complex human event that is examined scrupulously and in detail will reveal improbabilities, inconsistencies, awkward gaps in our knowledge. Only in fiction do we find all the loose ends neatly tied. That is one of the ways we identify something as fiction. Real life is not all that tidy. In 1943, Lieutenant John F. Kennedy came under enemy fire behind Japanese lines in the Pacific. His PT boat was destroyed. His back, already weak, was re-injured. Yet he swam 3 miles, towing a wounded shipmate, found shelter on an island, escaped Japanese search, encountered natives who carried messages back to American forces, crossed undetected through enemy waters as enemy planes hovered overhead, and survived to become president. The account of his survival is full of improbabilities, coincidences, unknowns. So is the account of his death. So would be the account of your life, or mine, or the life of any one of us. Concerning the events of November 22nd, 1963 in Dealey Plaza, the report of the Warren Commission is probably as close as we can ever come now to the truth. And yet, if the Warren Commission had acted otherwise 3 years ago, if other government agencies had done differently then, would we today be even closer to the truth? Tomorrow we will consider not the assassination, but the work of the commission that was appointed to study it. For the first time, a member of that commission, John J. McCloy, will publicly discuss its work and its findings. Members of the commission staff and one of the commission's most persuasive critics, Edward J. Epstein, will be heard. And we will ask, although we may not be able to answer, 2 last questions. Should America believe the Warren report? Could America believe the Warren report? This is Walter Cronkite with Dan Rather and Eddie Barker. Good night.
This has been the third of a series, a CBS News inquiry, The Warren Report. The 4th part will appear tomorrow night at this same time. This broadcast has been produced under the supervision and control of CBS News.
This is CBS.